Welcome everyone to the 22nd annual Real Change Breakfast. My name is Genese. I'm one of the new board members here at Real Change. I've been with the organization for about 5 months. And first, let me just say thank you so much for everyone for taking time out of your busy days to be here this morning. It's really an honor, and it fills my heart with such joy to see so many people in such a big community that's coming out to support the vital work of such an important organization. So I've been with Real Change, I mentioned, for about 5 months, and I know some folks in this room, but I see a lot of faces that I don't. So just a little background on me. I'm a community organizer. My background is in activism and advocacy. And the reason that I joined Real Change is this. When I think of poverty, and when I think of what it's like to live on the margins of society, it's not just about losing your ability to put a roof over your head, to get 3 square meals a day, to get the health care you need or any of the other kind of material things that you need. But really, more importantly, or just as importantly, the thing that hurts the most is you really lose respect from the rest of society, and people don't listen to you. Now, when I think of Real Change, and the reason that I joined the organization is because I think that we, in every facet of our work, directly address that. We are about building dignity and voice for those whom are most marginalized by society, and having that cut through every facet of our work, whether it's the newspaper, the vendor program, or the advocacy. Everything we do is about building dignity and voice, and working with the folks who are most impacted by homelessness to actually partake in fixing the problems in society. So we have a lot of folks to thank for putting this wonderful event together. I want to start through with our matching sponsors, the Lucky 7 Foundation. So folks know this is a This is a fundraiser, and we are asking people to be as generous as they can. The Lucky 7 Foundation has agreed to match gifts of $250 or more. Our change agent sponsor is UFCW Local 21. Our leadership sponsors are the Low Income Housing Institute, Pacific Northwest Regional Council of Carpenters, the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, David Wright Tremaine, and the Central Co-op. Our community partners are the Seattle-King County Coalition on Homelessness, Terry and Jane Chadsey, the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project, Plymouth Housing Group, Downtown Emergency Services. And we want to give a big thank you to all of those who have given us in-kind donations to keep the cost down for the event. We also want to thank all the table captains for their generosity in making the event a success. And we want to recognize the labor here at the Washington State Convention Center, Unite here, Local 8, the Aramac Service, kitchen staff, Teamsters 117, admission attendants, transportation attendants, the loading dock staff, parking cashier attendants, and security. Let's give them a round of applause. And we want to recognize the wonderful elected officials who've made time to come here today. State Senator Pramila Jayapal. Senator Jeannie Colwells. And Seattle City Council member Lisa Herbold. So now I'd like to ask all of the vendors, the staff, the board of Real Change, all the volunteers to please stand up. Thank you so much for all of your work and for making Real Change what it is and all the work that we are going to do in the future. So now I'd like to bring up Jenn. She is our volunteer manager. Jenn?
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here this morning to celebrate Real Change, and in particular, the people who make Real Change great through their volunteer service. I want to extend a big thank you to the 16 volunteers who woke up really early this morning to set up and to welcome you into this space. Let's give them a big round of applause. You guys rock. Last year, we had more than 250 volunteers serve 9,300 hours in 48 unique roles. More than a third of our volunteers and volunteer time is dedicated to the production of the Real Change newspaper. Our 4 hardworking staff are supported by a team of 25 to 30 volunteers each month. I'm here to talk about 2 of these volunteers, Keishana Folger and Susan Storer-Clark. Keishana started with Real Change last year and has been a reliable and positive addition to our newsroom team. Her primary role is proofreader, but she also jumped in wherever we needed an extra hand for mailings and other projects. She's someone who makes a point to come to all of our events, like the Seattle Storm game we went to a few weeks ago, and she doesn't seem to mind when we come in to chat when she's volunteering. It's been a pleasure getting to know her. Keishana, I'm happy to present this award of Volunteer of the Year to you today. Susan came to Real Change after a call was put out to the labor chorus of Seattle asking for more volunteers. We were really glad she responded. Susan got started as a sales desk volunteer where she built great relationships with our vendors. She also started writing book reviews for the newspaper and leads our weekly editorial committee meetings, which generate many of the stories that appear in Real Change. This summer, she took on a more involved approach to a book review. We got a book in called Good and Cheap by Leanne Brown, and for her review of the book, Susan went out to test the recipes provided. What she ended up with was a feature article describing how a book like this could have a real impact on low-income people. Her initiative to take on this project is a demonstration of Susan's heart and determination. Susan, we appreciate the work you do for Real Change, and it's with much gratitude that I'm giving you this award. Thank you. Thank you. And now I'd like to present Alan Preston, our Managing Director.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here with us. It is a tremendous honor for me to stand here this morning and present the very first Lifetime Service Award that Real Change has ever given. The recipient of this distinction is an extraordinary man named Jim Douglas. Jim's been a volunteer at Real Change since 2012, but his work with us is merely the capstone of a lifetime dedicated to serving others. A few examples of Jim's lifelong service include a stint in the Peace Corps in Somalia, many years of leading international volunteer trips for Habitat for Humanity, and involvement in local community organizations like the Rainier District Little League, where I met Jim 15 years ago. Jim spent an entire career as a lawyer representing claimants for Social Security and SSI disability benefits. Many of his clients were homeless or otherwise living on the lowest rung of society's economic ladder. 2012, he received the State Bar Association's Community Service Award. It was in that year that Jim started volunteering at Real Change. Over the course of the last 4 years, he's given 1,500 hours of time to Real Change. That's right, 1,500 hours. He's been a volunteer for this event several times, been a contributing writer and book reviewer for our newspaper, attended many advocacy events, spent countless hours at our sales desk serving our vendors, and even led a support team for one of our vendors after she was attacked last year. Jim's been an anchor on our board of directors since 2013. When there's a need, Jim steps in to fill it. And it usually starts with him saying, "I may regret offering this, but I'd be willing to take that on." Those words have led to him playing point person on executive evaluations, serving on Real Change's Race and Equity Task Force, acting as liaison during our compensation review, chairing the board's personnel committee, agreeing to serve as board secretary, and most recently stepping up to become treasurer of the finance committee. I was with Jim last year in an interview with a potential board member, and the prospective board member asked, "Are there other ways to get involved besides coming to board meetings once a month?" Jim, in his typical blunt manner, replied, "Are you kidding? If you let it, Real Change will bleed you dry." Well, Jim, we have created opportunity after opportunity for you to get involved, and time after time, you've stepped up. For your exceptional service to Real Change and your lifetime commitment to equity, we are so proud to present you with Real Change's first ever Lifetime Service Award.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alan. I'm flattered, I'm honored, I'm pleased. And all I really want to say is that if you're kind of thinking about volunteering for Real Change, be careful. But no, one of the real strengths of the organization is that they do a fantastic job of matching people with the amount of time they have, the level of interest, and Jenn does a wonderful job at getting people oriented and plugged in, and after just a few months, you can really feel like you're part of the operation. So I encourage you to think about it. It's a great organization. If it seems to you that it's a great organization from the outside, believe me, from the inside, it's even better.
Hey there, my name's Tim Harris. I'm the founding director of Real Change. You're very kind. I love this event. We come together, we honor our vendors, we celebrate our supporters, and all of the amazing work that you all make happen. Real Change is 22 this year. We have grown a lot. We've always been smart about how we do that. We plan, we make shit happen, we think carefully about the work that we do, we think about why we do it, we think about how we can make it better. This year, we've written a new vision statement that you should see on the screen up here. There we go. We envision a just, caring, and inclusive community where people are no longer marginalized by racism and classism and have the means to live with dignity. You would be You would be amazed how long it took us to write that sentence. So I also know that each and every one of you has read our strategic plan. But on the off chance you haven't, I'd like to say just a few words about that. We only have 4 goals to our strategic plan. We honed in on what's important. We focused on increasing readership and circulation because that's where the vendor success is. And because we're an award-winning paper, we won an International Network of Street Papers Award for Cultural Reporting this year, competing against 135 papers from 35 countries. We won 8 awards from the Society of Professional Journalists. We are the best damn community newspaper in Seattle, and we want everyone to know it. We've focused on race and class. And we do that because we see how homelessness and poverty disproportionately affects people of color. And we know that the problem is institutional and it's personal. It's out there and it's in here. And that we need to work on it at both levels. And we've committed to that as an organization because we only win when we come together across our differences. You can clap. I sounded a little bit like Jeb Bush there, didn't I? We've focused on mobilizing our community because that's how change happens. Our vendors, our readers, our community allies, we all work together to make the change we need, and we're building the tools and resources that we need to make that better all the time. And we focused on long-term stability because we know that the road isn't always smooth, that we need the people and resources and plans to be able to ride out whatever crises may arise. People depend on us, and we need to be there. But the reason that we are all here today is because we support the vendors of real change. We want to live in a world where everybody gets accorded the dignity and respect that they deserve. And Real Change has fought long and hard for the safety and civil rights of the very poor. Most people in this room know all about the unsheltered crisis in King County. 4,505 people counted outside on a single night in January last year. Unsheltered homelessness has risen by 84% in King County since 2011. More than 1 in 3 homeless people here are surviving outside. Professor Sarah Rankin has some truth bombs for us on that a little bit later in the program. Most of you are also aware that a homeless 19-year-old died horribly last week. Walter Stroud was camped near an on-ramp and killed when an out-of-control vehicle ran over his tent. This shouldn't happen to anyone. Not here. Not when there's so much plenty to go around. I'd like us now to just have a moment of silence for the memory of Walter Stroud and for all the people who suffer and die on our streets. Without shelter, people die. In the middle of your table are advocacy cards. Last week, the majority of city council members committed to revising and humanizing our homeless sweeps protocols within the next 30 days. We need to make them do it. Please fill out the postcards on the table for us to deliver. Leave them behind. We'll deliver them. And use your networks to spread the advocacy message, go to homelessinfo.org. That's the Seattle King County Coalition on Homelessness website. There's a take action form there. Makes it easy for you to mobilize your networks. This is important. This year, we are giving our annual Change Agent Award to people, there's 2 of them this year, who have been active on this issue. We couldn't pick just one. And God knows there's lots of people in this room who are deserving of an award. But these people are extraordinary, and the work that they do has been around unsheltered homelessness, homeless civil rights, and bringing the voices of those folks forward so that they can be heard. We chose the homeless rights, and there's more information about these folks in your program. I'm going to be pretty brief, and you're going to hear about them, but I'm just going to give you the briefest of thumbnails. We chose the Homeless Rights Advocacy Project for their excellent policy work and analysis. This is a student-driven program, and the students involved with that are here in the room with us right now. Can you stand up and just get some recognition for that? And we also chose David Delgado, a scrappy as hell social worker who has spent his last 5 years organizing jungle residents as his personal unpaid passion project. David? Kaya? Would you please welcome David Delgado, Kaya Lurie to the stage, who is accepting the award for the Homeless Rights Advocacy Project. David Delgado. Congratulations. Hi. We're going to hear just a few brief words from each of them. Kaya, why don't you go first?
Thank you so much for this meaningful award. We've had such wonderful community support from people or organizations like Real Change, and it's just still so exciting to be able to see this kind of support and recognition that we didn't necessarily expect to get when we started 2 years ago. My name is Kaya Lurie, and I was one of the members of the student founding cohort of HRAP. And as you know, HRAP is known in large part for its influential briefs on legal and policy issues affecting people experiencing homelessness. I'm one of the co-authors of a brief that kind of exposed the disproportionate representation of marginalized groups in homeless populations, both nationwide and in Washington state. But this award is really one shared by all participating members of HRAP, and so I'd like to take some time to recognize them and their briefs right now. And so if you could please hold your applause until they've all stood up, that would be great. So Scott McDonald, who co-authored a brief on the scope of ordinances that criminalize homelessness in Washington state. Okay. Ruby Alamant, who studied pet ownership, Jody Lynn Gilliland, who investigated immigration and homelessness, Jessica So, who confronted vehicle residency, Suzanne Skinner, one of our distinguished practitioners in residence, who examined barriers to accessing shelter, Alex Glyman, who examined how public space is increasingly privatized, and Drew Sina and Whitney Wooten, who are finishing a new brief critiquing begging restrictions in Washington state. And so on behalf of HRAP's team of poverty warriors, thank you.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank Real Change for this award. I didn't even know there was an award until Tim called me. I especially want to thank everyone that has supported me this year. Change work can be distressful at times. And when I was going to the School of Social Work, I was told that if you're not making enemies, you're not really doing social justice work. And yeah. So basically, it's been pretty stressful. So I want to say a special thank you to First Baptist Church for supporting me. Thank you. I really needed it. I also want to take this opportunity to remind the crowd that we're in a state of homeless emergency. And right now that the city is considering paying over $140 million in a police bunker when we need housing. And I'm a little bit emotional. Last night there was a camp sweep, and I spent a lot of time moving people that did not have help moving, lots and lots of bags. There's information regarding contacting your city council members. Please do that. And before I leave the table, I like to say that my strength is outreach and not public speaking. The sweeps are really important. I'm seeing the effects of it down in the jungle, and I feel that if this legislation passes, that more people will have the chance to get off the streets. Thank you.
Congratulations, David. Congratulations, HRAP. Now is the moment that we've all been waiting for. So every year, vendors are nominated by our community for special recognition at this annual event. Vendors vote to select one male and one female vendor to be recognized at the breakfast as the Real Change Vendors of the Year. This year, we are fortunate again to have videographer Steve Falcon at Vacuous Films produce a film for this morning. So let's take a look.
I'm Shelley Cohen. I'm a Real Change vendor. I'm a school crossing guard, and I also have my own business. From high school, I went to North Seattle Community College. That's where I actually met the woman who became my wife and the mother of my kids. But the money wasn't coming through as we had hoped, and eventually it took a toll on our marriage. I am living in Lake City House, which is a building owned and operated by Seattle Housing Authority. I've learned a lot being involved in Real Change about the homeless situation. There are situations that come up that people need help. They need medical assistance. They need emotional support. They may have mental health challenges, drug addictions. They need services. One of the more exciting areas that I'm involved in is the editorial committee. We get together as a group and brainstorm ideas for the newspaper. A lot of those ideas come from our customer base. Customers. I saw this on Facebook. Why hasn't that been in the newspaper? I saw this in the Seattle Weekly, the Times, the Stranger. Why hasn't Real Change done their version of this? Customers. This is what Real Change is all about. Whether people pass my way and buy papers or not, it's giving them a smile, getting smiles back. They're wonderful.
I am Mellie Kaufman, and I am a Real Change vendor. It happened 2 days before my 19th birthday. I was hit by a car in the crosswalk. I went to the hospital. Apparently, I had suffered amnesia. In June of 1999, I was left wandering the streets of Seattle. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. I just wandering around from place to place, trying to get help from people, and I just tried to get by the best way I could. 2 years after I moved into my housing, I had got my memory back. Everything came back. In 2014, I came into the Real Change office. I got reinstated to be a vendor. I was nervous for a week, but after 1 week, my happiness came out, started dancing at my spot, getting people's attention. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna buy from this vendor. I really like her. She's a good salesperson. My customers would come up and say, you're the reason why I get off the bus and come to work every morning, because you're smiling all the time. You're here all the time. I look forward to coming to work, seeing you every morning on my way to work, stopping and buying a paper, or just simply stopping and saying good morning to you. After starting selling Real Change, I wanted to become more involved and see if my voice can get heard. No person should be homeless in America. That's not fair. We all should be able to live our dream and live our lives. I am a proud volunteer and vendor, and I just like it. I just loved it. I enjoyed doing it.
And now I'd like to invite to the stage Shelley and Mellie, and Jared, who is our vendor manager, to present the award. Let's give him a round of applause.
I have standing ovation after my remarks, so before we move on, I just would like to direct your attention to the screens on the side and recognize the 8 vendors that got into the final round of Vendor of the Year. With roughly 700 vendors annually, to get even to the final 8 is a real statement about your contribution to Real Change in the last year. And now to Mellie and Shelley. It rhymes, it's fun to say. So both Mellie and Shelley took 2 very different roads to this path, to this point. Mellie's been a vendor with us on and off for 16 years, growing year in, year out, learning, growing. She gets knocked down, she gets back up again. You ain't ever gonna keep Mel down. She gets knocked down. And now we have this amazing leader that's loved and respected at Real Change, known by many as the Happy Lady. Yep. And there's also Shelley. Shelley's been here for a mere 3 years compared to 16, but became one of our highest selling vendors in his first month of being with Real Change. They beautifully demonstrate that there is no single path to success except the one that works for you. So there's a long list of accomplishments and contributions they've made this year. Both of them were selected by their peers to be on the inaugural vendor advisory board when it was established this year. Both of them are leaders in our Real Change advocacy program, organizing events, going to protest, testifying at city council, and providing a voice for the often voiceless. Mellie was just accepted into Washington's Low Income Housing Alliance's Emerging Advocate Program. And Shelley, which is something that Shelley has already done. There's a little bit more. Shelley was elected vendor representative this year, and she's also an amazing artist who has donated her time and art to promote Real Change events. Shelley is part of our 600 Club, the coveted highest sellers club. He is also an active leader on our editorial committee and also is the vendor representative on the staff, for the staff weekly meetings as well. He has also been published in the paper, and if that's not enough, he was selected this year for the Real Change Board of Directors. So, Mellie and Shelley, you have done more than anyone could ask, and you so deserve this. It is with great pride that I introduce 2016 Vendors of the Year, Mellie Kaufman and Shelley Cohen. And they will now have some brief words.
I hear you, Lisa. I first want to thank the Lord for leading me this far. I want to thank Real Change for giving me the opportunity to be an advocate. And what Real Change means to me, there should not be no homeless people in America. I would like to thank all my customers at table 34 there for all their support and generosity. Thank you again.
Oi! What a great looking community. It is truly a blessing for me to be here. Thank you, Real Change community of vendors, for electing me as a 2016 Vendor of the Year. And thanks to my special community of family, friends, and customers that are here with me today to celebrate this honor. When people return my smile, it truly makes my day. It lifts me up. I feel cared for, and I know that I have established community. Please turn to someone and, being silent, give them a smile. Now, turn to someone else and just say hello. Now, say something positive to someone like, have a great day. This is how I build community. Real Change is community, and Real Change builds communities. All we have is this moment. I challenge each and every one of you to give as many smiles as possible, moment by moment. Have a great day. Smiling helps you live longer, and let's make real change together. Thank you very much.
Wow. If we could harness both of their positivity, we'd solve the energy crisis. Folks, this is the moment where we're going to ask everyone to get out their wallets, their checkbooks, their credit cards, debit cards. I'm going to invite to the stage Jim Lauinger. He is our board chair. Jim has led the organization through our newest strategic plan. He's been a wonderful leader on the board. He is the former mayor of Kirkland, and he's chaired numerous nonprofit boards. So folks, let's give it up for Jim.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning, everybody. It's great to see such a large, full crowd here today. Thank you all for coming here. You can hold on the cards for a moment, because I got some other news for you about that before we get to the full detail. One omission that I'd like to mention before I start telling a small story from my past is that we missed one elected official, and that is State Representative from the 48th District, Patty Cooter. Patty. Thank you for joining us this morning, Patty. So, about 40 years ago, I was fishing in a stream in Oregon, the Metolius, down in southern Oregon. And I wasn't much of a fisherman, but I'd gone out and I've got all the gear, waders, the jacket, the hat, the rod, the reel, and all that kind of stuff. And being that I really never learned to swim, I really didn't use those waders much, but I looked good and I'm standing at the bank there, putting my line in the water. Didn't catch a fish the first day. Second day, I went back in, and now I'm about ankle deep into the water. And I look across, and there are my two children, 4 and 6 years old, sitting across the bank having ice cream. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get further out in the stream, and I got a little further, and I'm up about mid-calf. And I thought, I'll be macho. I'll walk across the stream and go get some ice cream. So I started, and suddenly the stream deepened. And it was going down to the center of the stream. The rocks were beginning to feel less secure, and I then realized with great fear, not that I didn't know how to swim, but I forgot to belt off my waders. Anybody that fishes in Oregon in a stream like that, 50,000 gallons of water a minute passing by, knows enough to take your belt off, and you belt off your waders so that if you slip sideways, you don't get filled up with water and go away in front of your children. So I proceed, I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do now? Turning around doesn't sound really good, so I carefully put my foot on each rock, hoping that the rock didn't move, that the rock was there and solid. And I kept doing that, great amount of fear coming up at my throat, and I started going up the other side, and I finally got to the bank safely. And I laid down in the grass and just stared at the swift waters and thought about those rocks that did not shift under my feet. They were solid rocks like the one that's on your table this morning and the one that's going to be momentarily on the screen. Today I look back at that stream and it reminds me a lot of the swift currents of the United States turbo consumer-oriented economy, swift and unforgiving, to millions, including 4,500 individuals that are homeless, and all the many others that are low income in our region. It also reminds me of the solid rocks in that stream. And the solid rocks for secure and a safe transit across the risky waters are folks like you in this room today. All of you, solid rocks of support that enable us to do the good work to nearly 4,500 homeless neighbors caught midstream and get them to safety and to the bank just across the stream. One of the biggest assets we have, it doesn't show on our balance sheet, but I know, is the legions of solid rocks like all of you, willing to show up early, as this morning, to help fund the work you have been hearing about, who have served as powerful champions of the Real Change mission. We're so fortunate to have this huge grassroots support. It allows this organization to speak with bold independence as we advocate for change in this region. So I'm asking you, as the solid rocks of this organization, to be as generous as you're able to help fund the critical programs and initiatives that support efforts on behalf of those of low income, homelessness, our outstanding vendors like Mellie and Shelley. But let me explain one thing first before we get out table captains with the envelopes and such. I made a decision on the bus coming here this morning that with the outstanding matching offer from the Lucky 7 Foundation, matching any donation of $250 or more, for that reason, and also a little bit tug at my sleeve, that I can't stand here and ask for you to do more if I don't do more myself. So this is what I do, and it's really kind of a nifty way of giving and making sure that I can give more than I have right at this moment. I usually write a check. It's called the ante. So I have written a check this morning. Here it is. And then I do that, and I also do a monthly deduction after this. So that is an easy way to make your contribution and your donation bigger than you can right at this moment. I would urge you to take a look at that. But I'm going to do one other thing this morning. And this is the thing I just mentioned, that I can't lead unless I do it myself. So this is my check this morning that I'm turning in, and I also will do the monthly deductions. But this is my checkbook. What I'm going to do this morning, and I hope that you all can follow me, I'm going to write another check of this amount right here and now to Real Change News for the same amount, to double the ante. That is all going to be doubled again by the Lucky 7 Foundation. Now we have a lot of other ways that you can donate to us. You can do it online. You can do it through your credit cards. You can give us hard, cold cash. Or you can also do it through your debit and credit cards. I think you all know that. So I would ask now, I would ask the table captains to go ahead and send out the material. Almost forgot that, Tim. And I'm going to stand here and write my second check. And knowing that that check is going to be doubled the minute it gets into that bag, and I know I've got you all very inspired. All right, that's the drill. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning, folks. It's truly an honor to be in front of you and addressing you. Thank you very much.
All right, can we get another round of applause for Jim? So now I'd like to bring to the stage Professor Sarah Rankin. She is our keynote speaker for the event. Professor Rankin is a professor of lawyering skills at Seattle University, and she's the founder and director of the Homeless Rights Advocacy Project. She proudly serves as the co-president of the Society of American Law Teachers, or SALT. Professor Rankin has nearly a decade of experience in private practice at major law firms such as Kirkland & Ellis and Sidley Austin, where she specializes in complex litigation. Prior to her legal career, Professor Rankin received her Master's of Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And Professor Rankin's teaching and scholarship interests include social and political aspects of legal education reform, legal and policy issues relating to people experiencing homelessness, and policy advocacy. Most importantly, at her core, she is a teacher, and Professor Rankin is inspired by all of her students to carry out the work that she does. So let's give a warm round of applause and a great welcome to Professor Rankin.
Thank you so much, Chris. You know, when Tim Harris first asked me to serve as keynote, it came to me through the grapevine that their true first choice for keynote speaker was Macklemore. And so I started practicing my rapping skills in front of my husband at home, and to my surprise, even after dropping my mad jams, he really discouraged me from trying it all with you today. I know. What does he know? Jim Lauinger also gave me some history about some of the more memorable keynote speakers at this breakfast, including one who removed his pants during his remarks. So I hope you all understand why I'm standing here thinking I might be a complete and utter disappointment to you this morning. Of course, I'm deeply honored to be here to talk to you about real change. There's much to say about this visionary newspaper, the real change it brings to its readers through bold and insightful journalism, the real change it brings to its vendors through self-empowerment, and of course, the real change it brings to our general community through engaging us relentlessly with truths we may not wish to confront. Real change challenges us to dust off our moral compass, to open our eyes, and to reject the pervasive myths of homelessness and poverty. And so I'm here today to amplify the call for real change. That is real change within ourselves, especially how we react to visible poverty, or more precisely, how we react to visibly poor people. You see, as a lawyer, I'm particularly intrigued by how we express our fears and our impulses in our laws and policies. Laws and policies that can make some feel more comfortable and more protected, but at the same time, even in unintended ways, those same laws can make others less protected, more vulnerable, further marginalized. So today I want to expose some of this process and to challenge all of us to recognize how, despite our good intentions, and for many of us, regardless of our very, very hard work, we are all complicit in creating the circumstances within which poverty and homelessness can thrive. We must begin to see the ways that we contribute to this problem, and if we are willing to engage in real change, we can actually stand up with our poorest neighbors and start to begin working on some actual solutions to this problem. I mentioned a moment ago about how we express our fears and impulses in our laws and policies, and in my circles, we refer to that as the criminalization of homelessness. Criminalization refers to laws that prohibit or severely restrict one's ability to engage in necessary, life-sustaining activity in public, even when that individual has no reasonable alternative. So, examples include laws that prohibit sitting, standing, sleeping, receiving food, going to the bathroom, asking for help, and even protecting oneself from the elements. These are things that none of us could forego for very long and still survive. And yet the act of surviving in public is so tightly regulated that people experiencing homelessness cannot help but get caught up in the web of these laws. They cannot avoid somehow tripping a wire that results in significant, potentially life-altering consequences. Criminalization laws don't have to start as criminal charges, although many do. Many also start as civil infractions, a ticket with conditions or requirements like show up in court, avoid a significant area for a significant period of time, pay a fee. These conditions are extremely difficult for poor and homeless people to meet, and when they fail to do so, that civil infraction can then mutate into a misdemeanor. And once that person is saddled with a misdemeanor, now they may be ineligible to access food, shelter, and a host of other benefits that could actually lift them out of homelessness. So, by criminalizing their efforts to survive in public, we have actually made these people more resistant to recovery, more likely to become sick, more likely to self-medicate, more likely to become incarcerated, and even more likely to die. Obviously, criminalization comes at a significant cost, not just to the lives and liberties of the men, women, and children, but also to society generally speaking. A vast range of studies show, they prove, that criminalizing homelessness and poverty is far more expensive than investing in non-punitive alternatives such as permanent supportive housing, mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment. So if it's such a bad idea, why do we do it? Well, there's many reasons why, but the primary contributor that I'd like to focus on today is the power of our instinctive response to visible poverty. We are all stained by what I call the influence of exile, deeply ingrained class and status distinctions that guide us, even subconsciously, to enact and enforce laws that restrict the visibility of poverty, of poor people in public space. Studies show that evidence of human struggle or desperation commonly provokes fear, annoyance, disgust, and even anger from those who witness it. Neurological tests, where you put the probes on your brain to see which parts of your brain are firing in response to visual stimuli, even neurological tests prove that when we're confronted with evidence of visible poverty or human desperation, we respond with higher rates of negative reactions than we do when we are confronted with any other marginalized trait, including traits that we historically associate with discrimination, like race or gender. So this fear and disgust that we've specially reserved for poverty, it's expressed oftentimes without us even thinking about it in our laws and policies. This is what I mean by the criminalization of homelessness. And my work, the work of my incredible students, and many others who are here today, fist bump, Tristia, Yuri, Nancy, catalogs the paralyzing scope of these laws and their dizzying popularity. Criminalization is pervasive nationwide. The National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty has been tracking criminalization laws in about 187 cities for over a decade. And their most recent report from 2014 looked at the differences in criminalization laws between 2011 and 2014. And they made a whole heck of a lot of disturbing discoveries. For example, citywide bans on camping increased by 60%. That's in 4 years, just 4 years. Citywide bans on begging, 25% increase. Citywide bans on standing around, 35% increase. Bans on sitting or lying down increased by 43% in just 4 years. And bans on sleeping in vehicles, the thin, tin line between you and the street, those increased by a staggering 119% in 4 years. Washington isn't doing much better. Our HRAP project released many reports. One of them surveyed the criminalization laws in our state in 2015, and that report found that such laws are prevalent throughout our state. 78% of surveyed cities criminalize sitting or standing, 75% criminalize sleeping, and 63% criminalize camping. Understand that in many jurisdictions, the way that camping is defined is so broad that it can encompass even temporary behavior like propping a coat up on 2 sticks to protect yourself from the rain. We observed that a significant number of people spend 90 days or more in jail for violating these laws. We also observed that as rates of income disparity grew in certain cities, so did the rate at which those cities enforced their criminalization laws. In other words, the greater the gap between the rich and the poor in a particular place, the more likely that place is to become punitive for the poor and homeless people within its boundaries. So these are just snapshots of contemporary criminalization, but it's something that we've been pretty good at for some time. American history is replete with examples of how discrimination and bias can fuel the enforcement and enactment and enforcement of laws that criminalize the presence of undesirable people in public space. Jim Crow, anti-Yoki, sundown town laws, these are just a few of the notorious examples that we have since rejected. And when we reflect on these legal artifacts, we do so with some collective sense of shame. But it's important to notice that many of these same marginalized groups are disproportionately impacted by criminalization laws today. Marginalized groups, including people of color, single female-headed families, people with mental illness or addiction, people with physical disabilities, LGBTQ youth, immigrants, all of these marginalized groups are disproportionately represented in homeless and poor populations when compared to the general population. So this disproportionate representation of marginalized groups among those who are suffering poverty and homelessness is not a coincidence. It's a symptom of the structural inequities that we all create and maintain. Common stereotypes and prejudices quietly influence our judgments regarding whether someone else is worthy of protection, and those judgments then can unconsciously determine how we allocate rights and resources to poor people generally, but to visibly poor people in particular. It's the sustained visibility of poverty that prompts us to react. We firmly want poverty and human suffering to remain private. So we perpetuate this marginalization through lenses of blame. Studies show that public support or tolerance for a particular group or an individual turns on the degree to which we believe that group or individual is responsible for a particular trait. In America, especially compared to other countries, we are particularly enamored with the bootstrap work ethic, the cheery belief that if you just work hard enough, you too can avoid poverty. Over a quarter of Americans believe that the most significant cause of income inequality is the failure of the poor to work as hard as the more affluent. We also commonly embrace the fiction that homelessness is the product of simply a bad choice, that people experiencing homelessness do not want help, that they do not want something better for themselves. We tend to assume, I think especially in this city, it's clear to me, that if someone declines an offer of service, that person deserves their fate. That person deserves society's divestment. That person deserves not to be cared about. And even when we talk about emergency shelter, it can serve as a real distraction from long-term solutions that are really, really critical and hard, but have to be done. Societally, we rest on the assumption that emergency shelter is a solution, but it isn't. It's a stopgap measure that very few of us would actually choose for ourselves. We must reconsider what we define as a meaningful offer of shelter or housing or help. Is it a reasonable offer of shelter if we require people to give up their family members, their beloved pets, their sense of community? What about their actual community? How about their personal belongings? Are there conditions that they need to satisfy? Or put another way, are there measures of privacy, autonomy, or human dignity that we're asking them to give up? Is it a reasonable offer of shelter to expect another human being to give up all these things for one night of uneasy street sleep next to a bunch of strangers, only to be ejected back out on the street early the next morning with none of these things. The bottom line is that we've taught many people to distrust services and shelter. Through experience, many have learned that emergency shelters, emergency responses do not promote their sense of safety, stability, and dignity. This experience is so deeply embedded that even if a real meaningful offer of service or shelter comes along, reasonable people in their shoes might not accept it. They have learned that emergency responses do not create the experience of a home. They certainly do not create the experience of a real human place to belong. So the next time we feel incredulous that someone would pass on an offer of service or shelter, we might instead consider the possibility that we offer people false choices and then blame them for not taking it. So what are solutions? If the problem is visible poverty, it should be pretty plain by now that I think that the answer is not to eject poor people from view, although that is the primary achievement of the criminalization of homelessness. Actually, it's the exact opposite that we want to aim for. I believe that in order to create a meaningful shift in American laws and policies, that the crisis of poverty, as long as it exists, must be visible in public space. We must figure out a way to confront the problem that we are responsible for creating. So it is necessary, proximity is necessary for social change. My law school mentor, my professor in law school, who's an amazing lawyer and social justice advocate, Brian Stevenson. Yeah, I gotta give it up. He wrote the book Just Mercy, and in it he argues that to fight injustice, the first thing that we have to do is to get proximate to it. We have to show up and see things with our own eyes, and then we will feel compelled to act, right? So just as importantly, we can't develop a viable solution to a problem unless we show up and get a personal up-close view of it. So proximity is one of my modest suggestions for real change within ourselves. One simple step you can take today and going forward is to create meaningful and sustained opportunities for you and people that you know and love and care about to get to know someone who's poor or struggling with housing instability. Donate big time to real change today. Volunteer for the amazing agencies that we have in this city like Mary's Place and Youth Care. Get to know this amazing community that my friend Rex Holbein at Facing Homelessness has created. Download today a new app called We Count that my friend and colleague Graham Press has designed. It will connect you immediately with people experiencing homelessness and the things that they need right now. So there's so many ways. It's an awesome app. Download it. There are so many ways that you can get to know some of the intelligent, inspiring, resilient, it almost makes me cry, because they're awesome, awesome, awesome people. And in all, this is like the fourth time I cried this morning, so don't be impressed. In all likelihood, that proximity will convert you. If you're not converted already, that proximity will convert you and you will be unable to rest until we get the social change that we need. Oh, cities, you have things to do too. And although they have access to all of the HRAP reports, which contain many specific and numerous recommendations, I still get requests for something simpler. Could you boil it down? So I did. I created a list of 12 simple steps that cities can take to mitigate the criminalization of homelessness. And the full document is on HRAP's website, but here's just a few summary extractions. As you can see, they range from specific changes in the law to what I think is the most important one, and that is a proposal to create leadership positions for people experiencing homelessness so they have direct and regular access to lawmakers. Because after all, proximity is necessary to solve this problem. So, speaking of proximity, we are near the close of my remarks. As I promised, I did not rap one time. Not one time. I wanted to, but I didn't. And my pants have remained on during the entire duration of my remarks, as far as you know. But we can do this. Let's commit ourselves today to real change within ourselves, within the people that we know, and within the laws, which, at least for now, do too much to drive poor and homeless people to the literal fringes of society and condemn them to stay there. Here is to real change. And thank you.
All right, folks, so that wraps up the event. Thank you so much to everyone for coming out and for being as generous as you've been. Thank you, Sarah. That was a wonderful keynote. Congratulations to all the awardees, David Delgado, HRAP, Shelley, and Mellie. Thank you to all of the sponsors, the volunteers, the staff. Let's have one more round of applause and really... Folks, thank you so much for coming out. Enjoy the rest of your day.